I have to say the reason is because of racism. I know that these women had jewelry parties. I know that they had, Tupperware parties and all the things. I was not invited or included. It was just a very interesting experience. And I was talking about it one day and it almost brought tears to my eyes because I'm like, wow, I was not really included. I was somewhat accepted, but I wasn't really included.
Welcome to Seriously Catherine, a podcast about taking your business seriously, but not yourself. So this week's hot take is all about the new year and New Year's resolutions. I don't know if you think you know me, but I am not a resolution person. I think that it's like too much stress, too much expectation to put on yourself at the front end of the year to do all these things indefinitely. It's just like we always get to the end of the year and haven't accomplished the things, like to the extent that I'm sure we thought we would. So, I mean, this is just me talking from my own personal experience. So I don't set New Year's resolutions. I do set intentions. Like I want this year to be a positive one. I want to intentionally be more present with my family, with my kids, and my people who I enjoy spending time with. But as far as resolutions go, oh, no way, Jose. Like I am not going to set a ridiculous resolution. Like I'm going to go to the YMCA every week or whatever it is. I'm like set up to fail if I do that. So for my own state of mind, I set intentions and I say no, hell no to resolutions. Okay, so if you know me, you know that I love what I do and I'm a workaholic. So if I ever have a chance to get away, I can't go too far away without my kids and without being so far away from work. The Adelphi is my go-to. What's really great about the Adelphi is that it has everything you need. It's right there on Broadway. It has a restaurant, it's got the breakfast joint, it's got it all. And the room service is amazing. So last Christmas, we did Christmas Day night at the Adelphi. We booked the Polaris suite, which is really special because it has a hot tub on the balcony. And the kids loved it. It was so much fun. We ordered room service and it was just like the most special thing. And again, it's got a jacuzzi. I mean, who doesn't want to use a jacuzzi at the Adelphi? If you don't have the opportunity to stay at the Adelphi, you can still go and hang out in their lobby or eat at their restaurants. The best sushi in town, by far, I believe, is at the Adelphi. You should get the rainbow roll. You can thank me later. It's delicious. It's absolutely the bomb. If you are local and you need a night off or a night away, don't go too far. Go right there to the Adelphi. Book yourself a room, have dinner there, have breakfast in the morning, and you'll feel like a totally different person when you wake up. So this week from Saratoga Living is actually from Capital Region Living. I don't know if y'all know, but Capital Region Living and Saratoga Living, it's like a split issue. So you get two cover stories. So this winter issue of Capital Region Living, the cover is Don Andrews, who is the owner of Upstate Canna Company, which was the first dispensary in the Capital Region. It's in Schenectady. And what's really awesome about this whole story is that he was super strategic about how he was going to open up his store. And he started selling hemp and CBD first. So he was like ready to go as soon as he was allowed to open a dispensary and start selling cannabis. He was ready to go. So really exciting. I've never been there, but I know a person who has been, and it's really nice. And everyone that works there is like super knowledgeable about all the things. And, you know, it's really interesting how these dispensaries really can open your eyes open to different types of cannabis, right? And I know we've had Christina Lopez-Aducci on the program before, and she talked a lot about gummies, but there's tinctures, there's oils, there's like lip balms now that you can get. So there are so many ways that you can consume responsibly and recreationally, and you don't need a medical card to go to this store. So it's really cool right there in Schenectady. So go and check it out, and also go read the article because I'm excited to hear about his story. On this week's episode of Seriously Catherine, we are joined with my friend Kathleen McLean. Kathleen is a thought leader in equity, team building, and leadership. She's a keynote speaker, facilitator, author, and executive coach. More importantly, she's my friend. She's a mom, she's a wife, and she gets it done. So I'm so excited to have her on the show and let her share her wisdom with us on how she integrates being a business owner, being a mom, being a wife, these are all the things that I'm trying to get as right as possible. And with Kathleen's help, I think we might get there. Kathleen, you, in my perspective, are such an amazing role model. And you, for me, have been a shining star and a guiding light in my life. I don't know if you know this or not, but you seem to have it all worked out. And I know none of us are perfect and we're all just, we're human, but you do an exceptional job of balancing your business and your career and your spirituality and your marriage, and you're a great mom. I mean, you have to sort of dispel some of these myths for me. Like, how did you get there?
Catherine, first of all, I feel the same way about you. I love your energy, your enthusiasm, and your excitement. And so I feel that that's something that really resonates with me, that you have a joy for life, and your spirit is contagious. And I totally appreciate it. I'm humbled by your thoughts of me. And what a question. How did I get there? I think it's truly a process. It has been for me. I grew up and I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, lived with my mother and my father. And I came from, my mother's a very hardworking person, and I love my mother so much. They were immigrants from Haiti, and my father as well. Though I grew up in a household where my father was physically, verbally, and emotionally abusive, and I had to really work through that. I met my husband when I was 16 years old. But before that, my life, I always believed in God, prayed to God, went to church. And I always said, God, I want to have a nice husband and I want to have a nice life. And I used to play Carolina and Vilma with my sister. We had imaginary people, and we played this game where we had one child and we shared her. It was Kathy. So I feel like Caroline and Vilma took us to an imaginary place because that wasn't our story at home. It was not. It felt like my sister and I were on eggshells depending on how my father, his mood or his spirit or his energy. I mean, one of the big things he did that really broke my spirit is when I was in school and I would do math with him and I couldn't understand it. And he would literally, every time I got something wrong, he would hit me on the head and call me dummy. So I came from a place where he'll call me dummy, but then be like, oh, you're so pretty. And so I got this message, and my sister is the smart one. That's what he would say. And I'm the dumb one. And so those things definitely affected me. And I realized that I was like, you know what? I don't want, and my mother was also abused physically, verbally, and emotionally. And I didn't want that for my life. So I meant praying and praying. I said, God, I want the Brady Bunch life. And so the Brady Bunch is a show that I grew up watching. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at Marcia. She was the older sister, and Carol and Tom. And I was like, this is the life I want. And I met Mark. My sister was at Erasmus High School with my brother in love now, Wayne, Mark's brother. And then that's where we met Richie, who's known as Shaggy. And so my sister,
wait, whoa, back it up. Do you mean Shaggy, the musician Shaggy?
Yes. So he was the best man at our wedding, but he was Mark's, Mark and him were like best friends. He told us we should get connected. So my husband, who was originally born and raised in London, he literally came here when he was 18 years old, and I met him soon after. I talked to Mark on the phone for 1 week, and I loved his British accent. And then I met him a week later. We were a blind date. We met on Flatbush Avenue in McDonald's. And outside of McDonald's. And I remember, because so in Haitian culture, the common thing is to greet someone with a kiss. And so when I saw Mark, and I met him at McDonald's, I was like, oh, hi. And so I put my cheek in front of his face to kiss me. And he was looking at me like, what? He's from British culture. I'm from French culture. So there was a constant, it was like, whoa, what is going on here? And he did kiss my cheek. And so I think where I am today has a lot to do with my pain, has a lot to do with my struggle, and has a lot to do with God, really, who I'm so grateful and thankful for bringing Mark into my life. And I mean, so Catherine, I was a bedwetter until I was 16 years old. And as I look back, I was like, I stopped wetting the bed when I met Mark. And so I know that bedwetting is part of the why. I think I was just nervous. I was constantly nervous because I lived in an environment that was unpredictable and I didn't know what was going to happen. And so I think that was my way of releasing stress.
Wow. That is some crazy, miraculous shit, for lack of better words. I mean, honestly, like, I don't know, like, 'cause I guess some people, like, need the hard, honest facts, right? And you can't talk woo woo and you can't talk spirituality and God. And I think it's tough for me too, because I was raised Catholic. If you need to speak to God or you need to pray, you can do that, but you don't have to go perform it out in the world, if that makes any sense. So I was raised to be very skeptical. But then I was also raised to just have a strong faith in myself, and I think that that's where my faith really sort of shines through. And I think also, like, growing up, I can't say I was not abused. I was not, I had like a pretty ordinary upbringing. I mean, my parents had arguments just like any marriage, they still do. But I certainly felt like I wanted to be the best version of a mother and a wife that I could possibly be. It wasn't until I moved to Saratoga Springs that I even really felt like the calling to do something on the career side or the business side. I think growing up, I really just, that was the ultimate goal, was to find the guy and get married and have his babies and let him take care of the rest, right? So it wasn't until I got out of that Southern culture of like just be a Mrs. that I recognized that, wait a minute, well, maybe I can have both of these worlds, right? I can have the career, I can have the business, I can have the independence and still be an awesome partner and have the family that I always dreamed of. How dare I think that? Because it's really hard. But like I said, when we first started, it's just you are so authentically living out this like dream life that you created and cultivated for yourself. And a lot of it is in how you take action day in, day out, and how you live out these values.
Yes, and it's a co-partner, right? I feel that my pilot is the Lord. And I was also raised Catholic, and when I got a bit older, I realized some of the things I was doing. For me, I feel that it's more of a relationship where when I was Catholic, and I know it varies and it's nuanced, so I don't want to speak globally for the Catholic faith. I can only speak from my own experience. It was more rote for me in terms of that experience. But actually, when I was 23 years old, I accepted Jesus as my savior. And that was when I started to have a relationship with God where I talk to God, God talks back to me. And that's through the Holy Spirit. And some people call it their gut, their conscious. People have different words depending on their faith or their philosophy. And for me, it's the Holy Spirit that guides me and directs me and leads me in all things. And so that is where I feel that has helped me. And in terms of when I think about children, I thought that was interesting what you talked about growing up a Southern girl. That was your dream. And for me, I didn't grow up a Southern girl, but my cousin remembers me at 16 being like, I was like buying bridal books because that was my thing. I wanted that dream wedding.
Yeah.
And I said, Carlin, if I ever do anything, you are going to be the MC, because she remembers clear as day about me running around with the wedding. And I always wanted a baby. Like, I wanted kids so badly. I wanted the Brady Bunch. So Catherine, I wanted 6 kids, but Mark wouldn't let me. After number 4, he's like, no more. You are not having any more kids. I was like, oh, please.
But you're like, you found a loophole, didn't you? You have 4 kids, but you have adopted?
Well, one of my children, I did adopt one of my kids. Yeah. And in terms of our marriage, Mark and I have been together since I was 16 years old, and he was 18 years old. And so we did go for a walk one day, and I'll never forget it. I said, Mark, you know what? I want to adopt. And he said, so do I. And this is as teenagers, we're having this conversation. So when I was 35 years old, we were going to bed, and he was 37. He's like, hey, I'm getting older. Are we doing this adoption thing? I said, oh, absolutely. So I actually the next day went to Vet Fitness. was called Gold's Gym at the time. And I got on the Stairmaster and it said be an Albany County foster parent. And then I became an Albany County foster parent. And then we went to the MAP classes, and then we got our son in, then we adopted him. We had him for 10
Wow.
years as foster parents, and then we adopted him.
Oh my God. But you must have felt a calling. I know you did. You were like, this is my
Absolutely.
calling.
I love children, period. I just
And you
love children.
you can't picture your life and your family without that child.
Yes, and I don't tell people that he's adopted. Usually, one of my girlfriends just said, "I can't believe I didn't know that about you." I said, and she goes, "I love that even more," because one of the things I remember being at a hair salon one day, and this really stuck with me. There was a woman there who was talking to me, and she was a young woman, and she said, "I'm adopted." And one thing I really hate is that my mother felt the need to tell everyone that I was adopted. And I feel that that's something I don't do, because for me, I have 4 children and there's no differentiation whether adopted or not adopted. They're just my children.
Now we know that it's best for it to be well known, right? At least for the children to know.
Oh,
But you tell me, because I don't know have any experience with that.
Oh no, he knew. Like he was, yeah, because his bio mom, we knew her and everything, and she just wasn't in a position that she could care for him. So we definitely, everything's very open. Yeah, we told him everything. Like there were no secrets about why he came and all the things that surround his life. We were very open with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And okay, so I want to go back. Obviously, you had this like calling, and you're a very determined woman, right? So I get the sense that you get an idea in your head, or you get, something comes through you, and you're like, we're going to make this happen. So can you share a time when you felt so called to do something and you got pushed back? I can't imagine you've always felt supported.
Oh my gosh, something I've called to do and got pushed back. Woo. So I think, have I gotten pushback? Well, I think with, starting my business, my sister again played a role in that, because she gave me the book, The Power of Focus by Les Hewitt. There are 2 other authors, and I believe that book had a transformational effect on my life. And my first business was a fitness business, and I was doing cardio kickboxing for mothers and daughters at Light of the World Church in Latham. And my daughter was 8 at the time. And I wanted to scale it up to make it a lot bigger. Though, as I look back, I realized a lot of the skills I needed, it was going to be a big lift. It was too heavy a lift for me at the time to do it. Then I started, and the reason I started the McLean group is because of my daughter, Danielle. And I don't feel like I got pushback. And I have to really think about that. If something comes to me later, I'll definitely share. But I started my business because I, again, grew up with Black and brown people in Brooklyn, New York. And when I went to college, of course, that was my first real experience with people that were white, and had a white roommate. And we were fine. I mean, there was a lot of conversations, a lot of questions they would ask me, and I would ask them, because they wanted to know why I didn't wash my hair every day. And I would ask them questions like, why did they wash their hair every day? And at that time, one of the things I didn't notice my roommates did was they didn't put lotion on it. And they would say, why do you wear so much lotion every day? And I was like, well, why don't you wear lotion? So it was just a lot of conversation. And I guess the other thing I would always ask is, I'm like, why don't you eat food? My roommates at the time, several of them just didn't eat. They only had cottage cheese. And I'm like, why don't you, and exercise incessantly. And I was like, well, why don't you eat like food instead of cottage cheese? So those were those conversations we were having. And then when I came to to Latham, I moved to Latham. I noticed one day Danielle, who was 6 years old at the time, came home, and she pivoted right to the bathroom upstairs and took a yellow towel and put this yellow towel on her head and started to shake her hair around. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And I was a stay-at-home mom for 8 years. And I said, Danielle, and she really didn't say anything. Danielle is not a talker. And what I realized, at the time was Danielle was struggling with her racial identity development. And then I began to volunteer at the school. I went to the school. I brought books with Black and brown people in them because I noticed at the school there was nothing that showed anything that was Black or brown. And my daughter was surrounded by white children, surrounded by white teachers. And I realized she was struggling with her racial identity by expressing it with putting the yellow towel on her head. And I came to the conclusion that if you don't know who you are, you can never become who you can become. And that's what brought me to my business is Danielle struggling with her racial identity? And I thought, well, if Danielle's struggling with her racial identity, how many other parents like me have children who are struggling with their racial identity, living in places that they don't have a mirror of people that look like them? And that's when I put her in certain programs like Delta Pearls, where there were monthly activities with other little girls that looked like her who also lived in the suburbs, who did not have people that looked like them. So I put her in all these different things to make sure she would have those experiences. And I think because the majority of people are white, in the US, 60%, that it's rare for white people to not have communities or places where they don't have a support in terms of people looking like them and going to the mall or looking at magazines and everything around them that's positive, they can relate to or connect with, where at times that might not be the case. If we live in certain parts of certain communities, we may be the only one or go to different meetings and be the only one.
So I would love for you to share your experience of like why stay and how do you stay, right? Because I would a lot of people don't, right? People don't like change, they don't like evolution, they have fear, lots of fear based. I kind of want you to share your experience of like staying the course in order to bring about change and evolution. And that's how we move forward together. We can't get up and run when the going gets tough or things get a little challenging, right?
And so, Catherine, I think that's such a big question. I think it's a very personal thing. The reality is people are people. And I think that's where we demystify people of color to white people to LGBTQIA plus people with disabilities. People are people, regardless of race, gender, sexuality, who they like, who they love, their faith, their religion, their ethnicity, the way they think. People are people. And so demystifying that, I had this notion that this suburbs was this really friendly, warming place. I envisioned that my next door neighbor's children would be running into my house and my children would be running into their house. That was not what I had this pie in the sky belief and attitude. I'm not sure where I got it from, probably from TV, where I kind of thought, again, the Brady Bunch, where I saw those kinds of things. And I realized when I got to the suburbs, I'm like, oh, this is definitely not what I thought. I mean, Catherine, I literally talked to everyone. I invited, women that were white to my house for lunch and did do reach outs. And it was not reciprocated. And when I look back, I have 4 children in that school district. And what do I have to show for it today is I have one girlfriend from that time who is white from that whole experience. If I could put myself as a white woman with the same exact look the same way, have the same everything, except my skin was white, I would have come away with 25 friends. And so I have to say the reason is because of racism. I know that these women had jewelry parties. I know that they had, Tupperware parties and all the things. I was not invited or included. And so therefore, it was just a very interesting experience. And I was talking about it one day and it almost brought tears to my eyes because I'm like, wow, I was not really included. I was somewhat accepted, but I wasn't really included.
Right, right. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's so blatant, and I think that that's also the piece that is really shocking a lot of the times when we hear these stories and it's like how did you get through that? And also, how did they not see how blatantly obvious the racism was. I hear this a lot too, where people are like, oh, well, if you didn't have the trauma, if you didn't have the challenges, if you didn't have the hard times, if you didn't have the racism, like, would you be as adamant and passionate about the work that you're doing? It's a difficult topic, right? It's very sensitive and delicate, and people take sometimes at me like, oh, well, because you had to go through that, because now look at you.
I think about Fannie Lou Hamer. I think about Mamie, Emmett Till's mother. I think about the long legacy of so many of my ancestors who went through things. And I think, like Mamie, whose son Emmett Till was murdered and then his body thrown in the Tallahassee River. And she pivoted her life to do this work. And I think so many Black women would prefer to be doing something different. I think of Ahmaud Arbery's mother, Wanda, who has been pivoted into this work because of the death of their children. So many of them have run in office because of the death of their family members. And I think that we do it, many of us, because we know that we want to live and we want our children to live. So for me, this work is really life and death. This is not, it's more than even passion, it's life and death, not only for my biological, physical children, but for your children and your grandchildren and all children in the world of all races, from children who are Indian, Native American, Black, Latino, Asian, biracial, multicultural. So this work for me is life and death, because when, thoughts are things, and the way people think affects what they do, because people behave how they believe. And my job is to change their belief system so they can behave differently. And when they behave differently, they can impact other people, especially now with the world of social media. Those beliefs can go out into the world, and those beliefs can be for good and for healing and not for harm. And so I feel that my job is so critical and so pivotal in that I am changing people's mindsets. When you change someone's mind, you change how they behave. And so I feel such an honor to be in rooms when organizations hire the McLean Group, and we get to be in spaces and places where we're changing someone's mindset. It can change generations and generations and generations and generations, because when you have a new mindset, you have new behavior.
And isn't that so exciting that we can do that, and we can change perspective? And, I truly do believe that the more diverse your circle is, or a community is, the more powerful we are, the more we can learn about each other. Like, who wants to learn all the same stuff that you've been learning day in, day out? I want to learn new things. I want to be around different people. I want to have different experiences. And I think that the other piece of this too is that it's not just going to take one type of person to make that change. It takes all of us. We all have to be at the table. And I also believe the way we get there is through positivity and community building and bringing people together, not the divisiveness that we see so much in media and news and in general. I just think that the world is so scary right now. And if I'm feeling that, I think that's another thing that I get. Well, like, if you think you're scared, how scared do you think I've been this whole time as a Black woman or as a minority owned business? Or, so I just think, like, I don't want to sound like ridiculous here, but it's like, isn't that a good thing that people are feeling the weight of it all right now? And isn't it a good thing that we can use that as momentum and motivation to work together and kick the ball up the field here, instead of, a group of people not feeling any stress or not feeling any weight?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, I like the fact that you do bring people together. The other piece I think that you said I want to just add to was how you felt excluded. And here you are, a white woman. And so this capital region, I've talked to white people, Latino, Black, Asian, all groups of people who have said the same exact thing, because they'll meet people who, like, they went to Shaker together or Shen, and that's their little group, and they just want to stay in it, and they don't want to, expand. They don't even want to, even if they're white, they don't want to expand to other white people either. And so there is that cultural thing sometimes that happens in some areas or some mindsets that people have, that kind of a small mind mentality, right? So I thought about when you were saying that in terms of bringing people together, and with that comment, how the world is so scary. We know there is literally war in so many countries, not even only Israel, the Gaza Strip, Ukraine, Haiti. The list goes on and on and on. And what Martin Luther King said, he said, a threat to injustice anywhere is a threat to injustice everywhere. And so, what I'm hearing you say is that's where we're living right now, that the injustice is everywhere. It's not only isolated in one place or another. But I also wanted to add, I felt that what you felt when you came here was like, okay, where are people? Like, where are the people? I mean, when I went to Latham, why did I pick Latham? We bought our first house in Latham. We heard that the North County School District was a good school district. So our decision was solely based on a school district that would be good for our children. And so I know for me, co-leading the Capital Region Professional Women of Color with Angela Tatum, I felt like, okay, because what happens is, Black women, brown women, biracial women, multicultural women move into this area, and some of them come here with not a significant other, a partner, or a spouse, and they feel like an island, and they have these high level jobs working as attorneys and doctors and teachers and all sorts of professional roles, and they feel isolated and alone. And so I feel that the Capital Color is, people refer them all the time, and it's a group of professional women. We have 1,000 in our group, and we have events like we just had a luncheon, and about 70 women came to that, and we were talking about navigating toxic workplace culture. And so I understand why you created Palette. And so having that community to let people know they belong is so important, because so many women, like, they reach out to me and they tell me, they're like, Kathleen, oh my gosh, this experience I just had at work, and I just trained a whole bunch of people, and then they just promoted someone else, and they didn't promote me. And so the Capital Color, it is this onboarding group, on board for life, because everything we give people referrals, where they get their hair done, where they can get their nails done, where can they go have a party, where they can go eat, just an onboarding for the Capital Region in
Yeah.
all areas of their lives,
Yeah.
even doing Zoom meetings where people come here and they're like, one woman said she moved to a new area and she had to have an abortion, and she said she knew nobody and she went through it all by herself. And I never want a woman to have to go through anything that difficult and not have anyone in the area to help them. And we also did a fundraiser with Teresa Marangis and Kathy they were part of the WPO, and we raised a significant thousands of dollars. We paid for rent for people or assisted them with, one woman was like, Kathleen, I'm getting ready to start a new job. But everything's confidential. Only people that know would be me, Angela, and myself. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, I just need a stopgap to get, some
Yeah.
food I covered. We're like, okay, so we can send you, we can't give everyone everything. We'll send you
Yeah.
$200. Would that help you? And so it's like this community of Black and brown women who come together to really support each other. Someone puts in the group, hey, can someone look at my resume? Someone's like, yes, I got you. Like 3 people look at their resume. People have
Yeah.
shared, other things have come out of that group. There's a book club that's come out of that group. And so it's multiplying and continuing to grow in so many ways that I may not even know. I kind of accidentally run into people, be like, oh, you know what I did? I said, I met someone at your group and now we work together. People have gotten jobs, because some of my friends will text me and say, hey, Kathleen, I'm looking for someone, and I'll refer them. And a lot of women have gotten jobs in that group as well.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what it's all about. You don't know you need community until you do, right? And this happens at Palette day in, day out. It's like you just don't know you needed the support when you did. And I'm like getting emotional, okay? Because I just got home from, Thanksgiving travel, and it's hard. It's hard to come back to real life when you're so far away from family. And I don't know what I would do without this space. And it is very self-serving because I need it in my life and I still need it in my life. So it's not like you get to this level in your world or in your life, in your career, and you don't need the support. If anything, you need more of it. So yeah, I mean, I could talk to you forever. I love you so much. I love what you're doing. You're such a role model for me. No pressure. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I love talking with you. I'm sad I didn't get to hug it out because,
Oh, I know.
I really I needed a hug today, but I'm gonna have to get it elsewhere now. Hey everyone, this week's Facepalm Mom moment is a funny one. So earlier this week we were at lunch and someone thought that I was the nanny of all the kids. And I really was quite shocked because it's been a while since I've been mistaken as the babysitter, but I was totally flattered and I appreciated it so much. But it made me think, like, back in the day when I just had Posey, I would also get mistaken as the nanny whenever I was downtown Saratoga Springs, and I would be so offended. I would be like, oh my God, don't they realize that this is my kid? I mean, she looks just like me. Why would people think that I'm the nanny? That's so offensive. But now, 10 years later, I am not in the least offended. I am flattered, and I welcome anyone who wants to point out that I look like a 12-year-old. I think it's pretty amazing that I can still pass as a 12-year-old. Now, it doesn't hurt or help the situation that I am still wearing my senior sweater from high school, class 2004, on a regular basis because it is the most comfortable sweater ever and helps me to reminisce of the olden days. Anyway, thank you so much to the person who thought I was the nanny this week. You made my day. Thank you for listening to this podcast. And if you want to connect with me, slide into my DMs on Instagram. My handle is Catherine Hover.